tide rolling, sitting on that rock of wasting time.
Maritime Matters is brought to you live by Bahamas Maritime Connection.
What is maritime?
Maritime, simply put, relates to navigation or commerce on the high seas.
Some say money makes the world go round. I say ships move the money that make the world move.
Who navigates those large international ships?
How often are international ships required to be surveyed and inspected?
Maritime also protects our seas and borders by way of our local Bahamas Defense
It
Force.
is very sad to say that out of 1,500 plus ships that are registered under the Bahamian flag, only a very small amount of Bahamians are employed.
Maritime Matters.
Pleasant good evening to you, our valued listening audience. Welcome one, welcome all. Welcome to Maritime Matters. I am your host, Captain Glenn Bain. I have to say good night to my good old Annie Mae. Annie Mae, this is 2024, darling, and you're going to be moving into 91 years here with us all night. Well, you had 91 without us. We only do half of what you do, but you this moving you into 91, honey. And so I say to you, special good night. You know you're the number one fan on Maritime Matters. And kudos to those 4 lovely daughters you have there, continuing to take good and careful care of you. That's Lorraine, Margot, Vernice, and of course Yvonne, my good buddy. Our sponsors for tonight's show, ladies and gentlemen, as usual, One-on-One Pharmacy. And also Island Care Pharmacy, which is a subsidiary of One-on-One Pharmacy. For all your medication needs, check out my good little cousin Shantia McBride. And Shani, your birthday was the other day, girl. You're getting up there too. So, you know, Shantia McBride and her lovely team at One-on-One Pharmacy in Nassau. And of course, Island Care Pharmacy in Freeport. Fill the prescription at the store. Or you have the option to send your refills via the online site, oneononepharmacy.com. That's oneononepharmacy, all one word, all lowercase.com. The 3 locations are East Street South, Charles Sanders Highway, and of course, Explorers Way in the city of downtown Freeport. We are secondly sponsored by Bahamas Maritime Connection. Who this? Oh, that's us. Bahamas BMC, Bahamas Maritime Connection. We provide a full slate of ISPS maritime security services. Anybody who know anything about maritime security, port security, ISPS security, they know about us. That's how we roll. We are also thirdly sponsored by our proud sponsors of GBI pilots and Bimini pilots. These are the contingent of independent marine pilots that are making themselves available to provide maritime pilotage to any and all ships outside of Nassau Port area or Freeport Deepwater Harbor. Eh? That means any family island, any private island. So please feel free to call GBI pilots or Bimini pilots for all your marine pilot needs. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we shall continue to address the various maritime matters that were covered during the year 2023. So we're going back to all those serious topics we covered last year. And these will include the bombing of HMBS Flamingo. Will equally include the Bahamas' multi-billion-dollar blue carbon credits market. So we could talk about our blue carbon credits, eh? Thirdly, we will go into the Porter's Key Dock management. You know, we talked a lot about that last year. There's a lot to say, and guess what? We're going to be hoping to touch up on that tonight as well. These are the basic topics that we seek to engage. We advise that we are again locked and loaded with information. So please, stay tuned as we unload this litany of details surrounding these timely topics. We're talking maritime, people. You are listening to Maritime Matters. My producer for the night, I take pleasure in introducing the man behind the controls, our wonderful Mr. Craig Gibson. He is the man of the hour, the man with all the power. He is fully able, quite capable, and the man that controls things on the show. He keeps things together for me. He keeps things together for us. So I say, Craig, continue to do a good job in 2024. You did a tremendous job in 2022 and 2023, and we know you're the man for the job. So keep us ticking, my brother. Thank you very much. Halfway through the show, we will open the phone lines. The number to call will be 326-8255. As a matter of fact, the way we go now, you could call anytime. You ain't gotta wait for no halfway through the show. If you feel it, let it rip. Give us a call, and we got you. Now let's get back to our hot topics, eh? First one being the bombing of HMBS Flamingo. Now remember we did covering of a couple of our topics last week. And we picked out these three tonight because, you know, we got a lot to go. We can do this whole month just revising and reviewing what happened in 2023. And one of our annual topics is the bombing of the HMBS Flamingo. And why is that an annual topic? Because every May, we want to remember and recognize those soldiers that suffered such travesty, eh? So we want to look at the recognition and reparations for those good officers that went through something that nobody else in this country, bar none, to date, have ever gone through. Because this is the only time we had a situation in this country, I dare say in this region, where during peacetime, there was a wartime attack. Lives were lost. The only time. And it will be totally remiss of us as Bahamians to not recognize that, to not remember and recall what happened to those gentlemen, and to not give them the reparations, or the families the reparations that they so deserve. They haven't gotten it yet. That's why I'm not letting it go. And that's why none of us should let it go. So the incident of the Flamingo attack in 1980 was the only time in the history of this country that we suffered such a military attack from another country during peacetime. Well, we never had wartime in this country. The Bahamas never had war with nobody, so we never had wartime. So it'd have to be during peacetime, eh? But we had a wartime attack, or a war activity attack. Did we take this attack seriously as a country? Did we honor these 19 men enough? The 19 men that have suffered such massacre, did we honor them in a tangible way? No, we didn't. My dear listener, the simple answer, as you and I know, is no. The Deputy Prime Minister, I. Chester Cooper, announced at the 49th Independence celebrations at the Royal Bahamas Defence Force base, I attended that on the 50th year, which should have been last year, was the 50th year, the government will bring significant recognition to those that suffered the 1980 Flamingo attack. And you know, there were some, you know, Queen's honor thingy or King's honor now, I don't know which one, but there was some honor, recognition sort of thing from, what we call it, Buckingham Palace. But where's the Coral Harbor roundabout, excuse me, and the merging 4 street names for the 4 that were killed on impact of this attack? You know, we're supposed to have those 4 streets, the one leading from the roundabout to the base, the one leading from the roundabout to the airport, the one leading from the roundabout to Blue Hill Road, which is now Carmichael Road, and the one leading from the roundabout up to Albany area up there. We're supposed to name the 4 of them after those 4 men that were killed. We're supposed to put within that roundabout a very, very large replica of HMBF Flamingo and all the names of the 19 men on board when that HMBF Flamingo was attacked. And that's supposed to be something to behold. That's supposed to be something where the taxi drivers could bring people on tour to have a look at and give the history of what it's all about. And that's how significant it's supposed to be at that roundabout. That's how beautiful that's supposed to be. But I even didn't hear nobody talking about it. I mean, that's a small favor to pay for men that were slaughtered down. Nobody in the Royal Bahamas Defense Force was trained to be in a position to defend themselves against a military aircraft like the MiG jet fighter. So these guys were basically sitting ducks. They were out there doing their job, which is patrolling the waters of the Bahamas to protect our sovereignty against poachers, against drug smugglers, and against illegal immigrants. And in doing so, they were slaughtered down by warplanes. Doesn't that deserve the type of recognition that all Bahamians could go and have a look at this replica? Read the history. We could even open up a museum to document and educate on all the details that took place surrounding the attack on HMBS Flamingo and those 19 men. Where's the street names? Excuse me. Where's the street names for the other 15 that survived the travesty? You know, as we said last May, and we can say again this May, because every May marks another year. Those men came, well, once the boat was sunken, they had to make their way by swimming in the water to the captured craft. There were 2 captured craft. Ferrocimo, whatever, the Cuban, however they used to name those. These government boats from Cuba. And because they had to dismantle the engines of one of them to cause them to stop, that one that was dismantled, they couldn't go on that, but they allowed the one to sink. They just say, we going on the big one. And all 15 of those 19 men ended up on the big one, the captured craft, along with the 4 crew. Or was it 8? 8 in total, 4 for each vessel. So it was 15 plus 8 equals what? 23 people on that one fishing boat. And in order for the other 15 to survive, they had to get very tactical. Because the MiGs came back looking for them. They were not supposed to survive, ladies and gentlemen. Nobody was supposed to survive to tell what happened. But because we had people like one Amos Roll and one Dusty Miller and one Peterson James, and I could go on naming, because they all had a part to play. First of all, as I recall it, the engineer on board the captured craft dismantled the steering. They took the steering pin out and put it in the bilge. And if it wasn't for one Dusty Miller, they wouldn't have been able to move from that spot because they wouldn't have had no steering. Dusty Miller searched and he actually gone into the bilge and find that steering pin. And they say nothing was so big, you know. A steering pin is basically a pencil-sized piece of steel, eh? He found it in the bilge and put it back in place. Got that captured craft going, steering properly. And just as dark was falling, they made their way back toward Key Santo Domingo. And through experience and wittiness, the Führer himself, Commander Amos Roll, ordered and instructed darken ship. In other words, turn off every light on board that vessel. Because he probably knew, or he couldn't know, but he had the inkling that those MiGs were going to come back looking for that captured craft with the men. They shoot up a couple fellas in the water. They probably wanted to shoot up all of them. But they probably wasn't sure. But when they gone back, they got the other man, okay, go back and kill all of them. And then I'm thinking this, if you follow the logics of what took place, you would conclude what I'm saying. So they darkened ship and started to maneuver. And they worked their way. When they saw the key, they didn't go to the key. They continued. We now going north. And that compass didn't have a light. We ain't talking about in the new millennium where, you get compass on small boats could light up. No, this is the Cuban boat from back in the day. The compass had no light. So Dusty Miller, the chain smoker that he could have been, decided we can't turn on the ship light because they'll see us. And plus, the greatest officer defense force ever had, Commander Amos Roll, had already instructed that we are going to be darkened ship. So they couldn't turn on no light. So he used the light from the cigarette to keep that ship on that compass north. Because they all knew that Ragged Island was due north of Key Santo Domingo. And when they got about 10 miles north of Key Santo Domingo, they looked back. The key was lit up like daytime. Because the aircraft that came back, excuse me, they let out whatever the thing name, somebody could call me and tell me, those things that when you let it out, it illuminates the whole area. You know why? Because they were looking to see if the men went to Key Santo Domingo. They were trying to find a boat, but trying to find a boat in the dark, in that area, it's extremely difficult. They were searching up and down trying to find, why are they trying to find them? Because they wanted to finish their business. And why do I think they want to finish their business? Because when that captured craft did make it to Ragged Island, and we had my good friend Leo Kirby, God bless his soul, and John Wallace, who continued to live among us, were from Ragged Island. They were able to trek. They knew the track roads to get from the southern shore to the settlement. And they took everybody, trotted along, went to the settlement, wake up the police, made the call to the police headquarters in Nassau to say, look, that's the first time anybody knew that the boat was attacked and sank. And the very next morning, we had a police plane and I think a passenger plane, the DC-3, came to pick up the officers and crew of the HMBS Flamingo to take back to Nassau. And the Commodore and the Commissioner of Police came to Inagua on the police plane. And when they came off and they went to speak to the men and do all the rest of that, the Cubans came back and they actually landed on the airstrip, armed and loaded. And nobody could have gone near that airstrip. Nobody moved, nobody got hurt. And that was our Commissioner of Police and Commodore Defense Force that they were holding at bay. Y'all don't come out here. And for 3 hours they stayed there. And while they were there, you had those MiG jets flying over Ragged Island looking for the men. And you know, they're just looking to see if they could see them. They looking to see if they could destroy them. They still want to kill these fellas. So ladies and gentlemen, what those men went through ain't no joke. And this country, this Bahamas, owes them recognition big time and reparations big time. Yeah, we have little recognition. There's no reparation. None of the 4 men that got killed. Back then, they were saying that they were given $100,000 each. And I hearing now that there was only $80,000 they got, right? Their families. Obviously, they wouldn't have gotten it. But the other men, that when the water watching bullets pass around them, some of them got bullet scars on them. The ones that had to live for years and continue to live, knowing that they were at death's door. You know, there's MiGs flying over, shooting bullets trying to kill you in the water. And then they come to Ragged Island and sit on the airstrip, still wanting their men, still wanting you dead. There was no reparation. They got zero. They got not $1 from our government. We don't expect the Cuban government to give them anything. They're not Cubans. But our government have yet to give them $1. And I say, me, Glenn Bean say, each of them should be given at least $3 million. Each of them. And the ones who had passed and 4 died since that incident. The 4 died on impact and then 4 died. So out of the 19, we have 11 left. And those men should be receiving from our country, the Bahamas, from our treasury, at least $3 million each. At least. And the families for the 4 that died on impact should be receiving at least $5 million. But that $80,000, that's what Cuba gave us, eh? We don't know what our country should give these men. At least $5 million each family. And of course, the 4 that passed on since then, their families should also be getting their $3 million for what they went through. So ladies and gentlemen, the reparations, we gotta at least be seen to have taken this wartime attack on our men that were only doing their jobs. They had no training to fight against military MiGs. No training to fight even against a frigate or a destroyer or aircraft carrier. They only trained to go out there and patrol and deal with civilians. So, Deputy Prime Minister I. Chester Cooper, Prime Minister Davis, Cabinet of the Bahamas, Senate of the Bahamas, Minister of National Security. Come on, man. It's never too late to do right what should have been done then. So I say, let's do it, eh? Let's do it. No excuses. Anybody could find excuses for what they didn't do. We don't want you to have no excuses because we want you to do it. So let's get it done. We're talking maritime, people. You're listening to Maritime Matters. At this point, we move to our first break. And when we return, we will continue along tonight's Maritime 2023 wash-up. So please don't touch that dial because you don't want to miss this one, people. Thank you so much.
At Bahamas Maritime Connection Limited, we offer first-class maritime security services throughout the Bahamas and the wider Caribbean. As experts in maritime security, we specialize in production of ISPS assessments and plans, verification audits, certified familiarization training, and port security consultancy, just to name a few. Our services also include provision of a security force to maintain all required ISPS facility security compliance. For all your maritime security needs, visit us today in Nassau at our East Street South location or in Freeport in the Kipling Building. Call us at 392-3515 or follow us on all social media platforms. Bahamas Maritime Connection, your leader in maritime security. Let's help you make the connection.
Please game responsibly. Don't take your paycheck every week, cash it, and head to the number house. Don't sit on the computer and spin for hours while life passes you by. Before you know it, you will be down to your last $20. Your family depends on that money. Your family depends on you. Problem gambling destroys lives and families. This message is brought to you by the Gaming Board for the Bahamas, reminding you to gamble responsibly.
Sitting in the morning sun, I'll be sitting at the evening.
And ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back to Maritime Matters. On this show, we talk maritime. So tonight, we continue to address the various maritime matters topics that we covered during the year 2023. And we just got through the bombing of HMBS Flamingo. We now move on to the big dog that's going to take us through 2024. Bahamas multi-billion-dollar blue carbon credits. And we could go on and on and on talking about this one because this one is still alive, it's still active. The potential is still there for us to be bringing the billions every year. And, you know, so last year, around mid last year, the World Bank had 3.7, anywhere between one. They projected that they would get between $1 trillion and $3.7 trillion in pledges coming in to assist countries like the Bahamas, where we got a lot of blue carbon sinks, to be able to protect them from damage and everything else. Now, we've done many shows on blue carbon credits. And our blue carbon credits in this country, we happen to have the largest seagrass meadows in the world. In the entire world, people. Not in the Caribbean, not in the Americas. There's no country in this world that has more seagrass meadows or more acreage of seagrass than the Bahamas. And the simple reason for that, as we said last year, we have the largest banks, our Great Bahama Banks and Little Bahama Banks and Columbus Banks and Crooked Island Banks and Abaco Banks, and all these add up together. Because all of these banks have seagrasses in abundance. And what have we learned? We've learned that 1 acre of seagrass absorbs out of the environment the same amount of carbon from the air that the rainforests and the Amazon forest and whatnot, it takes them 35 acres to absorb the amount of carbon out of the air. I mean, they call it sequestration. Okay, you sequester out of the environment the amount of carbon that it takes 35 to 40 acres of Amazon forest. We only need 1 acre of seagrass meadows, or 1 acre of mangroves to absorb the same amount of carbon out there. So the Bahamas is, when it comes to carbon sinks, the most blessed country in the world, because there are 3 products that sequester carbon out of the air at that rate, 35 to 1, when you're looking at the Amazon forest and forestry worldwide, right? There's the seagrass meadows, there's the mangroves, which we have plenty of as well, but not the most in the world, and there's the salt marshes, which we really don't have, right? We ain't care about salt marshes. We got the seagrass meadows. And last year, just before the summer, we had a university come down, University of Michigan. And this university did a study on the carbon sinks in the Bahamas. And they added up the greeneries, all our pine trees, our pine forests, how much carbon that is sequestering out of the environment, how much carbon the mangroves are sequestering out of it, and how much carbon the seagrass is sequestering. And they came up with a figure. They said, if the world was to pay us for the amount of carbon our carbon sinks are taking out of the environment, it will be worth around $156 billion a year. With a B. I just told you, the World Bank had countries pledging between $1 trillion and $3.7 trillion to pay out to entities that are taking the carbon out of the air, right? Because what has happened there, listener, is since machinery came around, and I don't want this to get very technical, because I try to keep things as simple as they are, right? Black and white. But since machinery came around, which was like in the early 1900s, machinery like engines for cars, for planes, engines for boats, engines for generators, engine for power plants, machinery. Once it burns fuel, and when I say fuel, I'm talking about gas, diesel, bunker C, coal, anything that burns and gives off carbon. is machinery. Now that started in the early 1900s. Now prior to the 1900s, the earth was balanced, right? You had the amount of carbon in the air, because when the trees exhale, they exhale carbon. When the mangroves and the seagrass exhale, they exhale carbon. Sorry, they exhale oxygen. The trees, the mangrove, the plant, all the plant, anything that's to do with a plant. You only have two kingdoms in the world. You have the plant kingdom and the animal kingdom. But the plant kingdom takes in carbon dioxide and exhausts or breathes out or exhales oxygen. And that oxygen is used by the plant kingdom. All the animals, all the humans, the animal kingdom, sorry, we take in that oxygen that the trees and them let out. And when we exhale carbon for them to now breathe back in. So it's a cycle. It's a cycle that keeps a balanced nature. The whole planet has to be balanced, eh? So what happened is that balance was disturbed because men start digging up carbon. What is carbon? When you're digging up coal out of those coal mines, that's carbon that was sequestered by the tree and stored into the roots and into the earth and stored away for thousands of years, just because that's what they do. But man decided, look, we could use that to burn for energy. So man started making coal mines and all the rest of that to bring in this carbon so that you could use it for machinery to turn, right? And that carbon, once it's released, started to stock up the environment, so the balance of carbon threw off the balance of nature. Because all the planes and all the ships and all the power plants, they started to put massive amounts of carbon in there. And now we have come to the stage where there's so much carbon in the environment that it's causing a blockage. You see, what happens is when the sun heats up the earth every day, when the sun goes in, that heat wants to get out. And again, that's a balance. But if the heat is trapped, because you got this carbon where the heat can't pass, keeping the heat on there. And then when the sun comes the next day, more heat comes and more heat comes. The balance of nature is disturbed because the earth is becoming too hot. And that's what they refer to as global warming. The earth, the heat is trapped on the earth and can't get out into the abyss. Because the carbon formed a layer around the earth and it keeps the heat here. And carbon, as you know, actually absorbs heat. Carbon absorbs heat. And that's what makes them heavy and solid and put that layer of blockage around the earth. And that's what happened from the machinery age to now. And it's getting so critical that hurricanes get worse because the sea is now so hot. And you know, when you get hot oceans, it makes the hurricane more violent. And that hot air is starting to spread to the North and South Pole. So now what you start having is the glaciers starting to melt out. And as that happens, the ocean starts to rise. Because all that ice from the poles start to get into the ocean and cause the ocean to get higher. And so when we got our coastline, under normal circumstances, the ocean gets higher, we start losing coastline. Next thing you know, the ocean get 10, 20 foot higher and it start to cover certain islands like the Bahamas. We flat lands. And the rest of the world knows this. Everybody see the writing on the wall. So they realize, you know what? We got to now do something so that we can get some of this carbon out of the environment so that the heat can start to escape again. And so that is why countries like the Bahamas that are naturally taking tons of carbon out of the air every minute, every second, are so important to the balance of nature, so that these violent storms and earthquakes can no longer get worse, no longer be a big problem. So they have companies actually making large contraptions, big fans that actually extract the fans. They're extracting the air and taking from it the carbon, melting it down or cooling it down or heating it up and turning it into either liquid or solid. And they do that so they could capture it, and then they dig holes hundreds of miles into the ground to store it. And they know once they store it in the ground, it stays there for centuries. So this is what's going on. So the Bahamas now needs its share, because we own the seagrass meadows that are taking tons and tons and tons, metric tons of carbon out of the air on an ongoing basis. And there must be compensation for that. But nobody gonna come to you and put it in your lap. Oh, you're the Bahamas. We know you're taking this out of the world. Please, here you go. So what the government had to do? The government had to actually map out and establish what is the amount of seagrass meadows we have in this country, right? And so they got a company to map it out. And that company mapped it out, and they use airplanes, and they have this technology where from the air they were able to establish a couple acres at a time. That's so much seagrass in there. That's so much seagrass in there, because technology allowed them to do that, eh? And then they got together with another company that had sharks. They had sharks. They came and they put some cameras on our tiger sharks, because they know that tiger sharks lives basically and feeds in the seagrass meadows. And they just put cameras on many tiger sharks and monitor those cameras. And they were able to visualize the seagrass meadows in certain areas. And then they had tracking, they had GPS tracking and everything. So they know what they're looking at all the time, eh? So they got together and they mapped out the carbon in the Bahamas. And I think they came up with some 92 million acres, something to that effect. I can't remember while we talk. I got the information because we brought it up on the show before. And so the Bahamas has a very large amount of seagrass meadows. And these are the things that the University of Michigan use to establish and determine that the Bahamas is sequestering enough carbon out of the environment that the worth of that is $156 billion a year. And again, nobody's going to come to you and give you $156 billion. You have to verify that your country is doing this. Yes, they may know, but how? You got to verify it. And they have verification companies internationally that can come in and actually verify that yes, this Bahamas, they have seagrass meadows that are sequestering all of this carbon out of the air on an ongoing basis. And with that information, we should be able to approach the United Nations for our fair share of that 3.7 trillion every year or whatever they got. Or we can approach companies that utilize a lot of carbon And those companies would need to offset how much carbon they're putting in there. And they could say, well, since the Bahamas pulling down all this carbon, we are buying so many credits from them for what we put into there. And that's how they neutralize their pollution. And that will happen for years to come. But not many, maybe about, because by 2050, which is what, 26 more years left? In 26 years, they wouldn't even be allowed to put carbon in there. So the world is going to change very rapidly, people. And while the Bahamas is in a position to make money off what we naturally do for the world, we need to move. I don't know what's the hang up, because these carbon meadows, the seagrass meadows, are sequestering every second. And the longer we delay, the longer it takes for us to get our first dollar. So we've had and we paid for the companies to come and map out our seagrass meadows. So now we have to pay for the company to come and verify our seagrass meadows. And then we could go there and, approach entities about making money for offsets. When is that going to happen, Mr. Government? Why is there such a delay, Mr. Government? Now, based on my research into this blue carbon credits situation, it suggests to me that the government has found a private entity to deal with our carbon credits once it become verified and all the rest of that. And the government pledged some 49% of the money to this foreign company, international, and not only is it's called, what you call them, companies where they're supposed to make no profit, a non-profit organization. Why would a non-profit organization get 49% of what the Bahamas is supposed to reap from our seagrass meadows? To me, it don't make no sense. Maybe somebody from the government could call and say why that entity is going to be getting 49% of what is projected to be $156 billion every year. Well, that's the only figure I know we have that from a study that was done. I never hear but no other study. So even if that's $50 billion too high or too low, we're still dealing with either 100 billion or 200 billion. Let's say we're dealing with 100 billion. So that means this company will get 49% of 100 billion. So they'll get like $49 billion a year, and they non-profit now. Just because the government, I don't know why the government want to go in bed with that. You have other entities that you could have hired to come in and deal with this carbon credit situation. You hire them. You ain't giving them no percentage of what is made out of it. You hiring them and they will charge you, and I know they can't charge you $49 billion a year, or nowhere near it. And then the other 49%, because 2% is supposed to go to some NGO, non-government organization to do, right? We don't know who that could be. But this is what my research showing me. And then they get a private Bahamian company, not a government entity, because as far as I'm concerned, it really should be a government entity dealing with our carbon credits. We should have, just like how we have the Bahamas Maritime Authority dealing with our ships, just like how we have the Airport Authority dealing with our airport, we should have an authority, a carbon credits authority to deal with our carbon credits. And they will hire this company that apparently our government is trying to give this 49% to. They will hire them and they will be paid a salary. And the country will benefit the 49%. So this private company is supposed to also get 49%. I don't understand it. Now this is a private Bahamian company supposed to get 49%. And out of that 49%, 51% of that was earmarked to go to the sovereign wealth fund. Like, this is all in the research. This ain't Glenn Bain talking what he take. This is what Glenn Bain research and read and have copies of. So here it is, 49% goes to the International Non-Profit Organization Company. 2% goes to NGOs, non-government organizations, in the Bahamas. And then the other 49% goes to a private Bahamian company that the government has identified to deal with our carbon credits. And from that 49%, 51% goes into the sovereign wealth fund. Now we have 49% of that 49% left. What happens to that 49%? Who gets that? I didn't find that in research. So that's 49%, which represents of the overall amount of carbon credits, which represents like a quarter. We don't know where it's going, based on the research that I have seen. And I did a lot of research. So there's some questions I would have. And the main one is what happens to the outstanding fund. First of all, I don't think nobody should get no percent. Okay? No entity should get anything from our seagrass meadows. We should have an authority that hire in professional organizations to do what we need done. And they would be paid for what we hire them to do. And all of the funds from the carbon credits, whether we doing trade-off for people to get their net zero, whether we dealing directly with the World Bank with the 3.7 trillion, however that money goes into the treasury. That way, the Bahamians will own that money. That ain't gonna be like our Newport where 49% going out of the country because a foreign entity was granted 49%. It could be like the airport authority, where all the money goes into the authority that is owned by our government. Right? That's my views on it. Again, number here to call. What is it? 325-8255. 326-8255. 326-8255. So, again, blue carbon credits. We have the largest seagrass meadows in the world that sequesters 35 to 40 times faster than the rainforests and Amazon forests and all the rest of them. The mapping is completed. We need to get the verification process done. I don't know if that was done as yet. I've seen nothing in the press to say that. We need to fix who is going to get the ownership of our blue carbon credits, right? We want the Treasury to get it. We want an authority to get it, which will then pass it on to the Treasury. We want to hire in all the private entities. And that's how we want to roll with this. We're talking maritime, people. You are listening to Maritime Matters. At this point, we moved to our first break. Our second break. Yeah, you can tell I'm a little fatigued, right? We moved to our second break, and when we return, we will kind of close out on tonight's show. And we will close out with the management of Porter's Key Dock. So, ladies and gentlemen, stand.
At One-on-One Pharmacy, our friendly staff is ready to serve you. Visit us today for all your prescription and over-the-counter needs at our East Street South or Charles Saunders Highway locations. We're open Monday through Saturday from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. and from 9 to 4 on Sundays. In a rush? Send your refill scripts online at oneononepharmacy.com or ask about our convenient pickup service. One-on-One Pharmacy, providing personal health care with people at heart.
Please game responsibly. Don't take your paycheck every week, cash it, and head to the number house. Don't sit on the computer and spin for hours while life passes you by. Before you know it, you will be down to your last $20. Your family depends on that money. Your family depends on you. Problem gambling destroys lives and families. This message is brought to you by the Gaming Board for the Bahamas, reminding you to gamble responsibly.
Sitting in the morning sun, I'll be sitting when the evening comes, watching the ships roll in, then I'll watch them roll away again. Yeah. I'm sitting on the dock of the bay, watching the tide roll away.
Ladies and gentlemen, you are listening to Maritime Matters. Thank you so much for keeping in with us. Tonight, we are revisiting topics of 2023. We've done the bombing of HMS Flamingo. We've done the blue carbon credits as far as our seagrass meadows and mangroves are concerned. We are now about to do the management of Porter's Key, which was a big show. The numbers to call, or you can reach us on, is 326-8255. Feel free to call if you wish. If not, you less have to listen to me going on, because we got a lot of information here. So, Porter's Key Dock Management. You know, last year, we talked about what Porter's Key Dock could really look like. You know, if we clean up that place and we improve the restaurants, and we stop all that traffic from flowing out there, because all the containers are moved, all the shipping agents have their own depot away from Porter's Key Dock, where you could do your transaction. You could take things that you want to go to the family island to that location. You can pick up goods that came from the family island from that location, just like we do at our port APD. You don't go on APD to get your goods that came in on Tropical or one of those agencies. Mind you, I must say that Betty K still operates at the dock, but only Betty K, because the rest, the containers are taken to Gladstone Freight Terminal, or GFT. You know, they are just south of Gladstone Road. That's where you got to go and collect your freight that came in from the States. And you do all your transaction order. You don't have to go. They don't need all them vehicles coming at our quay to do business. You don't have to be near a ship to do your business. So why can't we adopt that for Porter's Key? You don't need to be near the mailboat to collect from the mailboat or deliver to the mailboat. The mailboat, each mailboat should have a depot someplace around town, whether it be in Centerville area, whether it be in Village Road area, whether it be, well, you don't want it on Nassau Street, because you don't have to go that far to move containers between the dock and the ship. So somewhere to the south of Porter's Key Dock, in that general area, each mailboat that want to operate at Porter's Key Dock should have a staging area where they bring their containers to, so that people could get their goods, or where people would bring goods that they want to go to the family island and drop it off there, get the pay, do the payment, get a little ticket, and when it's time for that boat to sail, they just take the containers out to the dock and put them on the boat. Wouldn't that be a lot easier? You wouldn't have the traffic congestion. You wouldn't have all those containers sitting on the dock. And this is just common sense, you know. This ain't something that we need to think hard to realize. But we just want to be slack. We just don't want to improve it. That's the impression I'm under. Because if we want to improve it, there's nothing stopping us from causing it to be improved. And this is something that the Port Authority Board and the Minister of Transport supposed to get together and put enough pressure on the Port Department to have done. Because there's no reason why it cannot be done. There's no reason why it should not have been done. Now we're in 2024. We don't want to get into 2025. And people still have to come to Porter's Key Dock near those vessels to do business. Let's make that a thing of the past. Mr. Minister of Transport, Mr. Port Authority Board Chairman, Mr. Port Authority Board Member, Mr. Port Controller, Mr. Deputy, Senior Deputy, Assistant Port Controller. Let's make this happen in 2024. Because if you don't make it happen from a ministry perspective, nobody else have the authority to do it. So it will continue the way it is now. Just a natural, chaotic situation at Porter's Key Dock. So we had last year big huge ship named the Transcargo 2 just sat on the dock for years without moving and sank. So now we have a large sunken ship at the dock at Porter's. And you know what happened when that ship sank there? No other vessel could use that space, because you're talking about some almost 200 feet on the dock. Actually, it couldn't have been used now for years because the boat was sitting there and ain't moving. That's why it sank, I guess. So last year we started to see some things moving in the direction of the Transcargo 2 is going to be removed. And then a couple short weeks later, everything just stopped. So, based on what I saw, the Port Department was putting everything in place to move the Transcargo 2. And for some reason, that seemed to be blocked. Some blockage happened that they went so far and had to stop. So maybe, that blockage had to happen above their heads. And who's above the heads of the Port Department? The Port Authority Board. So somewhere between the Port Department and the Port Authority Board, something gone wrong, and the Transcargo 2 was no longer didn't continue to be arranged to move that off the dock. Or it could have been between the Port Authority Board and the ministry, because the buck stops with the minister, people. If you read the Port Authority Act, the buck starts with the Port Authority Board, who has control in conjunction with the minister over the Port Department. And if the Port Department ain't getting the job done, then they should be getting on the Port Controller and his deputies and assistants to make sure it's done. But ain't none of that going on, eh? So as far as I could tell, whatever blockage this is between the Port Department trying to move the Transcargo 2 and the Transcargo 2 being moved, Mr. Minister of Transport, please cause that to be removed. Removal of those containers. I saw saw some work being done to the southwest side of Porter's Dock. Well, you had some serious cleaning up going on. And then again, it going so far and then stop. Why would that stop? Why, if you done do couple loads of clearing away, the clearing away stopped again? I have to think that the port department wasn't allowed to go on, whether it be financial stagnation or them not being able to get the funds to complete the project, or some decision made above their head to say, look man, we ain't doing that no more, or we ain't worrying about that right now, let that sit. So again, our laws say the Minister of Transport is the one responsible for Porter's Dock. The management, ensuring that it is properly managed. The Port Authority Board. And then the Port Department. So somehow, Mr. Minister of Transport, we need to cut through the red tape and cause the Port Department, based on instructions and directives and whatnot from the ministry and the Port Authority Board, to make sure no container is allowed to sit at Porter's Dock for weeks and months and years. Make it a waking thing. When you land your container, the next day that should be gone. Or don't even land it, carry it the same day. And all those containers that are out there, people using it for office, people using it just to cordon off areas. Oh, we got a call on the line. Call, I'll be there with you in 1 minute, 1 second. All of that needs to be addressed. First of all, from the ministry and the minister and her ministry, from the Port Authority Board, and then the Port Department. We need to get it right, people. We can't sit forever doing this thing. Caller, you're on Maritime Matters. Good evening to you, and thank you for being the first caller.
Yes, man, this is the North Pole. Like coming in with a freezy message.
Man, all your carbon credits gone where you was.
I was trying to find out who got the carbon credits.
Man, you know the carbon credits. Anyway, we need to go over that all over again. But
listen to me carefully.
Yes, sir.
We need to do what you said. Get it cleaned up, because when me and you become the leaders of this country, we're going to link Porter's Dock to Prince George Wharf straight through, and we're going to take what is our own. What you say?
Well, really, all we need them to do is make every shipping operator or owner have their operations away from Porter's Dock. And the only thing they need to do with Porter's Dock is bring the full container to take to the island and then put on the boat, or take the full container off the boat when they come from the island and take it to their facility, their site that they have in place for their customers to go to. No customer should be coming on Porter's Dock to deal with no mail boat.
Well, listen. I am thinking about getting rid of them altogether. I am thinking about the billion-dollar tourist mecca on Prince George Wharf. I think it should be connected to Porter's Dock. What you say?
Yes, it should be connected to Porter's Dock, and it should be connected to Arawaki Fish Fry.
I talk about a boardwalk.
Yes, we want that boardwalk. We not only want a boardwalk, we also want a zip line that people could actually go in at Prince George Wharf and take that zip line all the way to Porter's Key, then get off, and when you get to Porter's Key.
Well, I tell you something, man. You know what I mean? That'd be something good to spend your $2.5 billion into. You know, we got to get rid of them first, and you know what I mean. We got to do the right thing. What you say? You and me and Mr. Bain up in Blue Hills, and and a few others. You know what I mean? We want our conglomerate to be just as proficient as those out in Lightfoot Key and Albany and all the rest of the other places.
Absolutely.
We got to spend this money right.
Absolutely.
Okay? And our carbon credits is holding us back. Why? At this present time, we are talking about crime and violence in this country and poverty when the leaders of the past is not doing what they're supposed to do to bring the fruit to our people. Because guess what? Right now, Bahamians ain't supposed to be like how we are. Okay? The crime and violence is the offspring of their elected duty by our leaders. Our leaders is the ones who are holding us back because outsiders got their hand in their pocket. Outsiders got their, you know what I mean? They can't do what they want to do for their people. We need to stop that right now.
Well, you wouldn't be getting no kickback from me on that. We got another call on the line, but look, we got to look at moving forward in 2024. We ain't worrying about previous past leaders. We got to deal with the leader while they're in the chair. We can't be waiting all the time for election to say, oh, we can change them. No, what happened in 5 years while they're there? We got to deal with them while they're in the chair, and we got to demand things, and we got to start do what we have to do to make sure put pressure on them, eh?
Okay, now one more thing before I go.
Yes, sir.
What you think about the man from the Spanish Wells? You think he's doing a good job?
Spanish Wells? What you mean, the shiny towns?
I talk about the Minister of Works.
Yes.
One of the best Minister of Works that we had since after woke up?
Well, so far, I saw 2 shanty towns come down, but I see no schedule for the rest yet.
Yes, sir.
You have a schedule?
You need to study, bro. You need to study.
Man, you need to send me a copy of that schedule, because the one that just coming on recently, that's the one they started from last year. That's All Saints. That ain't no new one, you know.
They're in Abaco now, and guess what?
They started to take one down in Abaco. Did you see any come down?
Well, listen to me. Clean sweep, let me go.
Okay. Well, I can watch for Abaco. Man, look, I want them to come down. But I'm saying, anyway, let me run this caller, but I'm saying we need to see a schedule so we can have an idea what you want to do, eh?
Okay, Ben, me and you can always talk, man. Get the caller, man, because they may have something more important to say than I got to say. Because I want to see a lot of people too. Well, I'm tired of talking.
Well, hold the line. Caller, you on Maritime Matters. Hello.
Hello, good evening, Captain Bain. This is Bain.
Captain Brain. Boy, your boy out of 8 Mile Rock, so he go hold the line till you finish. But he like listen to you talk. So let's roll, man. How you doing?
Everything is good, my brother. You're on one of my favorite topics, man.
Oh yes, Porter's Key.
Yeah, Porter's Key Dock, and you know, Porter's Key Dock, just like Andros, Morgan's Bluff is probably considered a low-hanging fruit. It's something we could address.
I agree. So what you think about the idea of getting every mailboat operator to have their own operation away from Porter's Key, where their customers would be coming to them, and whenever they're ready to sail, they could bring their loaded containers to the dock.
Well, Cap, let me enlighten you and the listeners, right?
Yes, sir.
This idea about operators creating an off-site
hub
in order to strip and to load containers
and take freight and people can come and collect their freight. Yeah.
Not a new one. I can tell you because I called a meeting when I was at the port with all the operators. Every single one attended. This was a plan that was outlined, that was written out. We had a drawing of how Porter's Key Dock ought to look. We had areas where the containers supposed to have been stored until they're loaded, or if they're offloaded, where they go. We had areas designated as for hazardous material. Right now, you could have a big container, or you could have a big cylinder of aviation fuel sitting on the dock. No security around it. No precaution. No nothing. You can have propane.
That's right.
You can have it. The whole. We actually attempted to fix this problem. And I think this what we did spawned the mailboat to get their facility in Oaksfield. I think Dean also had a facility on Parkgate Road, all in preparation for this whole. And it was something that was sanctioned and by the minister. It is something that got the support from most of the operators. Some of them actually, one of the issues they raised is the fact that they didn't have an off-site facility or wasn't minded to spend the necessary financial resources to put one in place. But this is not a new idea, and like you say, there I don't know where the blockage came on who made it on how it came, but eventually that idea was discarded. I had left the port, and then when I came back, they no longer proceeded with that. Right. However, that is something that it has to happen because the growth of shipping in this country has increased so exponentially that it has outgrown that dock by leaps and bounds, right?
No, but see that dock, as you know.
Top it off, Glenn. They have a lot of old boats. Like if you look by the police station and all that stuff, that is, you know, when you talk worldwide and you talk with port facilities, that is crucial and lucrative money-making dock facilities that we have, and they just either have patient boats, old mail boats that are no longer in operation. You have boats that are being repaired.
Tugboats.
It's just it's a management issue. That's simply a lot of it has to do with management, and then a lot of it has to do with political will. When you're trying to get things done, and the politicians stifling the efforts, and that's what boils down to the Port-of-Ski.
So we don't have a commitment from the top.
That is correct.
So if we work toward getting a commitment from the top, maybe the plan that you're talking about can have a chance.
Oh, of course, it will have a chance, because in the past, when we had our meetings, we invited the minister to attend one or two of those meetings, and we were full steam ahead. We even put up the fencing and the like. We had it, and I'm sure that somewhere in the port files they could find that plan and prove that what I'm saying is correct. And I'm sure that any one of the mailboat operators who are listening in on this show could call in and attest to the fact that we had numerous meetings discussing this plan and how it ought to work and the like. But at the end of the day, this whole business of a few people who probably did not want the plan to come to fruition because of their own selfishness, and they sold that to the political leaders, and that, in my opinion, ended the whole concept of improving Port-of-Ski dock, not only from a logistics standpoint but also from a safety and everything in every way.
Yeah, as I recall, back in the day, Herb, we had a typical mailboat had a crane, and they would palletize and take things off pallet by pallet. But now these days, over the past 15, 20 years, most of the mailboats are containerized. They have a ramp. As a matter of fact, one of them is currently being converted from a vessel that has a crane to a ramp.
Exactly.
And the reason being the ease of doing business with containers, because when they go to their family island, they can take that container. That container could be on a chassis, drive it off and leave it there, so the boat just turn around and come back. They don't have to take their time pallet by pallet using a crane with a man lifting up and down. And if you look at Port-of-Ski dock right now, 90% of the mailboats are actually containerized ships.
Yeah, and that is how shipping has progressed over the years.
And that makes it so much easier for that containerized ship to roll that container off and take it straight to their facilities away from Porter's Key. They don't roll it off and put it on the dock. Roll it off and take it straight to your facility, and then you deal with your transactions with your customers at your facility away from Porter's Key dock.
That is the plan. And if you look at the container port, the port at Awa Key, that whole concept of the inland port facility, freight facility on Gladstone Road, that was all a part of when this whole thing was discussed. All the Porter's Key was supposed to be a replica of the exact same thing that we did at Awa Key, where we had a facility off-site to take containers or whatever. The only reason why there was an area that we would have designated for just because of the really and truly, you're going to end up with some containers that you can't move right away, right?
Well, then they stay on the ship. They don't need no platform to land anything that is not going to their site. It's no need for that. The reason why they land them on Arawak Key because they don't want to move them until night. Most of those containers move to Gladstone Road at night.
Yeah, and so you know, the thing is, as we become more efficient, once implemented, as they become more efficient, and as they become more skilled at what they at managing a new concept or whatever, yeah, you could have chassis in place, and so once they're offloaded, they go they're taken directly to the site or whatever the case may be. But we got to start somewhere. We got to start with management of Porter's Key.
Call on the line, I see you. Yeah.
Right. So you have boats sitting there. They don't pay nothing, and they just taking up space, valuable space.
Exactly.
And nothing is being done. I know personally that in speaking with the port department, there was an effort afoot to identify those vessels that should be removed and to give them due notice and the like. But I'm not sure what happened. And like you say, the Port Authority board, I don't know what they're doing or whatever the case may be. But simply, it's just too. The whole thing is too lethargic, and we have to figure out a way to make this thing happen in 2024. Because at the end of the day, you could keep kicking this can down the road, but it's time we fix some things, man, and that's the bottom line.
Wouldn't get any kickback from me on that, my friend. Thank you for that contribution. And as our show comes to near to a close, I just want to say Porter's Key is something that we are not going to leave alone this year.
No,
because they started to do some things, and then everything seemed to come to a halt again.
Well, as you are aware, Porter's Key is one of my favorite places, and you know something. I think the government and everybody ought to pay attention to Porter's Key, because if you look at the amount of tourists that leave those cruise ships every day, and the first stop is Porter's Key, this will be slowly becoming the hub for the day visitors and the like to come and hang on Porter's Key, and we have to make it attractive. We have to make it amenable for our guests and the like, and it's becoming a part of the economic framework of this country, if it is not now, because certainly without Porter's Key, the family islanders will be in dire straits. So let's pay some attention to Porter's Key, man. Let's give it the due attention that it really needs, and let's fix some things. Just one, like I say, just one of the low-hanging fruits. There's some things we can fix.
Absolutely, my friend. Well, thank you for that contribution, and we will stay on the powers that be, and we will try and unclog those clogs.
Indeed.
That is stifling production.
Thank you. Thank you very much for allowing me, my brother.
You're so welcome, my brother. Take care of yourself. Yes, my brother from 8 Mile Rock. Are we still on? No, okay. So we got another call coming, which we lost once or twice. Call you up. Okay, look like we lost that call again. And well, caller, you still have a couple of minutes to call us. Well, you ain't got much. Couple is two, they say. My apology to the caller that was hanging on, and every time I try to go to you, I see you hang up. So I'm responsible. I'm not trying to get myself out of that. Okay, here you go. Call you on Maritime Matters. Hello.
Hey, Captain, hey, listen, boy. Your boy got long breath, man.
Yeah, he got us little good contributions to make, and you know how that go. But
yes, that's why I gave it when I let him go. You know what I mean? I like when he talk.
Appreciate that, my friend. I tell him you like to listen to him, so he down with that.
So listen, let me tell you something. Between you and me, right now, all those places that they knocked down Shantytown could be used for these places where we need to put the containers through, and then we could use some areas instead of letting foreigners use them, we could use them for ourselves.
No, man, them Shantytown's too far, man. We want those containers closer to Porter's Key. They could be in the Village Road area, the Camp Road area, Centerville area, but places close to Porter's Key, because you don't want them to have to go too far with their containers up and down when the vessels come in with the containers and when they're ready to go.
And once you make a schedule, and it ain't too much property or close to a Porter's Key dock where you could put like these type of facilities. You need to be out there where the line is, bro. You know what I mean? And once the line is there, and I mean that means you got more truck drivers, you got everybody who can make money.
Thank you very much.
That's what we really need to do. We need to put it where the line is, bro.
Yeah, but you heard our friend out of Blue Hills already said that this was on the drawing board from 10-15 years ago. This is all mapped out. Everybody had bought into it to some extent, and it just wasn't pushed through. So these things are already there. They just need to resurface them, and whatever. Once those vessel owners know that they need a piece of property to work from, they will find a piece of property to work from. They just need to be told. Yeah.
If you got to drive from east to west to go to work, would you do it?
Well, if you ain't got no choice, but I wouldn't want to do it during rush hour. But if you ain't got no choice, you ain't got no choice. You got to go ahead of time or go late, like me. I just go late.
You know what I mean? We need the line. We need big line, and guess what? These people could just do it like how they shopping, but we could be like a shop where they're going to, and they don't necessarily have to be containers up there. We could put plazas and we could put all kind of stuff up there. We could create an economic system within a system.
I with you on that, my friend. And with that, that's the last word, because we are fresh out of time. As always, I appreciate you for making those calls, keeping us on tab, and let's continue in 2024 to keep people's foot to the fire, eh?
Yeah, well, we can keep our foot to the fire too, because I got fire on my shoes right now. I'm ready to fly.
Yes, sir. Indeed, my friend. Thank you so much for calling, man. And as always, take care of yourself.
All right, man. Hey, tell Bahamas I love all of them.
The Bahamas loves you back, my friend.
All right.
Thank you. Yeah, that's my good friend out of the north, 8 Mile Rock and counting. Ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to a close. 1 hour overtime. So I would like to mention my sponsors all over again. Of course, we got Bahamas Maritime Connection. We got the great Bimini Pilots and GBI Pilots. Who else we got? We got our one-on-one pharmacy located on East Street South and Charles Sanders Highway with my good cousin Shantia McBride and a lovely crew. And we also got, and I think that's it for commercials, eh? But we got Annie Mae right there up in Freeport, rocking steady at 90, and in 2024, Annie Mae is going to be 91 years old. So Annie Mae, keep it going, honey. And ladies and gentlemen, I thank all my callers. I thank all the listeners. You have been very patient, because I know we covered some stuff tonight that you probably just enjoyed listening to. So continue to tune in to Maritime Matters. We will keep it on lock. We will keep the information flowing. Next week we go again with some of our hot topics from last year. And sooner or later we'll get back to our international stuff. So with that, I want to thank again my good producer for being the man of the hour, the man with all the power, the man who got it going. Mr. Craig Gibson. And ladies and gentlemen, as always, I say, Maritime Matters out.
So I guess I'll remain